What does this meeting look like?
Well, it's a historic breakthrough. We don't know what it looks like in terms of the setting by way of the place, but it looks like Trump is trying to have his Nixon-China moment to be Reagan-esque, which we know he said he is wanting to do. And it has real potential because if they are able to sit down, if there is a face-to-face, it creates a completely new level where we can try to de-escalate tensions and perhaps talk away the nuclear capability and the missile threat from North Korea.
I mean, Stephen, we talked to you earlier this week and you absolutely called it. You said, look, this time it feels different for many different reasons, whether it's the intensification of the pressure on the North Koreans here or just the sort of shifting relationships, I think, between all the key players here. The skeptics, though, look at this and say, what did the United States get? This is a recognition of this North Korean dictator coming to the table now potentially for negotiations. This is everything he wants to be seen on the world stage. What is America giving up and getting here?
Yeah, well, what America gets is a de-escalation and no conflict. What America gets is its support for its prime ally, South Korea, the 11th largest economy, and peace in the region, the first, second, and third largest economies in this world, to avoid that disruption that would happen. And remember, that's the alternative. We were looking at military conflict as the likely outcome.
Will he be willing to denuclearize in order to protect the future of the regime? Is that ultimately what North Korea wants here?
Yeah, no one knows for certain whether he'd be willing to. It seems to be his strongest card, so why would he negotiate that away? On the other hand, he has a two-track policy. One part is nuclear development. The other part, though, is economic modernization. And he knows with an isolated country, he has to perform. There is that aspect.
Economic survival at this stage, too,
it is.
with the sanctions.
Yeah. Now, we've seen a number of leaders, both American and otherwise, throughout history, believing that they can somehow solve a problem through force of personality. And that appears to be at least somewhat in play here, where the president thinks he can negotiate, our president, that is, with Kim Jong Un. How receptive do you think? I mean, obviously, we don't know an enormous amount about Kim Jong Un, but given what we know, is he going to be receptive to that kind of personality?
Well, we don't know for certain. What we do know is in his meeting with the South Korean delegation, he seemed to be frank. He seemed to be a little more cosmopolitan than people would have allowed. He seemed to know the score. And it seems that there has been, with this maximum pressure campaign, some concern, both about sanctions and about the military buildup and the proximity to North Korea. Perhaps that's been intimidating. But for President Trump, he's a transactional figure, and he sees an opportunity here to perhaps strike a deal. Beyond that, he wants to be a transitional president, and so he wants to make a big step. This is something different. And so though the skeptics are throwing water on it, we really should wait and see and try to see if there isn't some legs to this. That's what South Korean President Moon Jae-in has been doing so effectively.
He's also come under pressure, though, Moon Jae-in, domestically with those concerned, I think even less concerned perhaps about the threat of the nuclear risk versus what some future greater economic support perhaps from the South Koreans will mean for them domestically if they're trying to give money to the North Koreans in order to help them going forward. Is that a concern, do you think, and a pressure point here for the South Korean president that they'll ultimately be left carrying the baby here if they have to provide economic support? And I'm not talking about unification, I'm just talking about helping a near neighbor.
Juliet, that's a real concern because the South Korean taxpayer would have a $3 trillion burden. So getting the international community to come to the table. If Moon Jae-in pulls this off, if he gets Trump and Kim Jong Un to the table, give him the Nobel Peace Prize.
Right.
What role does China play in all of this?
China's been hugely instrumental. China has really stepped up in terms of sanctions enforcement. Since the fourth nuclear test 2 years ago, it's co-sponsored resolutions. The White House has given it great credit. The Chinese central bank has taken steps, and even the trading companies and the smaller banks are hesitating now with North Korea because the carrying cost is too high. They don't want to run afoul of Treasury. So China's doing a lot here. Some people say that the last 6 months have been fundamentally different, and so sanctions now are biting. So the White House wants Xi Jinping and the Chinese administration to continue on this path. So we'll see, and the Chinese have been calling for negotiation. That's what perhaps the Americans and North Koreans will get to, again with South Korean President Moon Jae-in's facilitation and urging, if allowed.
One of the fascinating aspects of this was the Secretary of State's role or non-role in this negotiation, and we made the point just actually in the break that he was actually in Africa during these negotiations. Do you think Do you think he's played any role in this at all? I mean, even up until yesterday, he was contradicted on the suggestion that perhaps these negotiations could go as far as a face-to-face meeting at this point. Does that matter?
Well, the bottom line is he has urged negotiations. He has urged diplomacy, as has Defense Secretary Mattis. However, he may have been caught out. We have a capacity issue in Washington. We need more talent on this. And there'll be a lot to do 2 short months before a negotiation.
Yeah, which is the point.
And that is a short period of time. But the fact that they struck at a timetable says that perhaps they're serious. And hopefully we'll see what comes.
Yeah. A little optimism here. I like it. Stephen Noerper.
It's optimistic, it is, but cautious optimism.
Gotcha. Stephen Noerper, Senior Director at the Korea Society and an Adjunct Associate Professor at Columbia University. Thank you so much.
Thank you.